Hi, I want to discuss some of the latest developments with the coronavirus. It's now being called the COVID-19 virus, so that may be the best way to sort of go forward with terminology. Um, yeah, I just want to kind of discuss some of the latest things. As reported in the Times today, the London Times. So the death toll, as it stands, is about 1,665 with some 68,500 cases. The authorities in Hubei province increased that to like 15,000 overnight because there was people who were thought to have it but weren't formally diagnosed, were then determined to have the virus. There are some troubling developments with this. I'm not particularly worried about the level of cases or the death toll. Not that I don't have sympathy for the people who are infected or those who have lost loved ones, but 1,665 is still a very low figure compared to other pandemics. What concerns me rather is some of the social implications. Also, I have a lot of sympathy for some of the people caught up um, in terms of where they are. I mean, there's been a bit of focus on this cruise ship. I believe it's called the Diamond. Let me just get this right. The Diamond Princess, which is stationed off the coast of Yokohama in Japan. Now, this is a big luxury liner. It's got thousands of passengers on board, 3,700 people. The Americans have made arrangements for their citizens to be taken off, as have, I understand, the French and the Australians and other nationalities. But our government seemingly hasn't done a great deal. And this is without knowing all the details, but the Times reports that British passengers on this liner may have to wait another 8 weeks. 8 weeks, that's about 2 months. It's a very long time to be trapped in a cabin on a ship. Um, and I appreciate that there's a utilitarian question here. Governments need to take actions for the greater good, but I think surely they can make some sort of arrangement to get British nationals off the ship. Fair enough, put them into quarantine when they get back to the UK, but this just seems to be unnecessary. I mean, some of these passengers are elderly. Um, it isn't just a case of the boredom, which is challenging, but there may be people with medical conditions. So I have a lot of sympathy for the people in that position, and they've resorted to communicating by Facebook with one another. I don't think it's a trivial thing. I think there are real issues there. Like I say, there may be passengers with medical issues. Now, this is advice of the World Health Organization, so I guess the government's taking that line. But we're a developed country, and surely there could be ways to contain the virus back in the UK, whilst also using some common sense in terms of not overreacting. I mean, I think making these passengers stay on the ship for another 8 weeks potentially is a bit over the top, a bit harsh. Um, it's not a case of, oh, let's just let them come home with no sort of precautions. I say have a specially chartered flight just for people from that cruise ship, um, and then quarantine them when they're back in the UK with all the facilities, with food, with showers, with Wi-Fi. But I think to have them stay on that ship for 8 more weeks is pretty unnecessary. I don't see the logic of that, or I don't see the. I don't. I think there could be ways around that without being reckless in terms of the virus spreading, because there are real issues of liberty here as well. Um, it's about getting the balance, taking the necessary precautions in terms of not letting the virus spread, the utilitarian issue, but also there is fundamental liberty issues here. Um, I just think 8 more weeks is a very long time to be asking people to be trapped in cabins on a cruise ship. Um, I mean, the thing about cruise ships is they sound luxurious. until people are in these sort of situations. Now, the second thing I want to look at is I think the previous video I made on this, I'd said that there is some hyperbole from Chinese media in terms of the backlash against Chinese nationals, and I still think that Chinese social media does play things up a bit to tap into nationalist sentiments. Having said that, I was perhaps wrong to say that the racist backlash is overhyped because there are a growing number of reports of racist incidents, and there's no other way to gloss them over. That's what they are. There was one case, in fact, it's first reported hate crime in the UK. A city worker from London, a young man by the name of Pawat Silawatakum. He's a Thai national, 24 years old. He's a city consultant. He was actually left bleeding and with a broken nose after one teenager stole his headphones and another teenager filmed the attack on his phone. Instead of running away, his assailant stayed and laughed at him. Now, this to me taps into the complacency that thugs have in this country, that, they've no fear of the law. And none of the passers-by came to help. But this is connected to the COVID-19 thing because they shout, coronavirus, coronavirus, ha ha. Um, and the victim said, I didn't get a chance to say anything when one of them snatched the headphones from my neck. The Cambridge graduate said that he was attacked when he pursued them. After about 50 metres, I ran across the road and I ran after one of them, shouting, Why are you doing this? When I reached the traffic light, he turned around and punched me to the ground. There was blood everywhere, he told the Observer. Um, I hope the little shits responsible are caught and punished. It absolutely disgusts me that this is happening in the year 2020 in this country. Um, I mean, frankly, it really angers me. In another case, a young woman, a Cambridge University student, who's a Chinese citizen, she's taken a PhD in education, was walking down a street in Cambridge when she felt someone pull her hair behind her on February the 3rd. She said the girls apologised, it was some girls done this, but they were laughing as they'd done it, which is a non-apology. So it seems that people of East Asian appearance are being targeted, whether they're Chinese or not. And it wouldn't matter if they're Chinese or not, it's wrong either way. But I think the people doing this need to be really punished. There's no excuses. It's disgusting, quite frankly. Um, so yeah, a friend of mine mentioned that there was a Chinese woman in Germany who was harassed by some German women. Wherever this is happening, it's wrong. Wherever you think of things going on in China, for example, that market in Wuhan, and yeah, I think China needs to introspect with some of the cultural things that are going on there. Definitely, it doesn't justify racist abuse. It just doesn't. I'm disgusted by those two cases. Um, I mean, for a young man to be violently assaulted, these little thugs need to be found and punished. To me, that warrants a custodial sentence, definitely. Um, but soft touch Britain will probably give them a tap on the wrist because of young offenders, which sickens me, to be quite honest. Um, I tell you something, if I was there, I would have maybe been reckless. Not for bravado. It's not because I want to be a hero, but frankly, my temper would get the better of me. I hate that sort of thing. I really do. And yeah, it's disgusting. So that's the latest development for COVID-19. Within China itself, a number of high level officials have been sacked in Hubei province, and the government's now sanitizing banknotes in an effort to stop the spread. It looks like they are doing things that make sense. I still think their treatment of Dr. Li Wenliang has a lot to answer for. If they'd listened to him in the first place, this may not have spread the way it did. The first fatality has been recorded in Europe, a Chinese national in Paris, and I believe there was also a fatality in Japan. But the actual death toll still remains a lot lower than seasonal flu. But the danger, of course, would be if it mutates. Not being a virologist, but that's I'm not a virologist, but that's my understanding of it. But I think we really need to crack down on racist incidents. Um, Liu Xiaoming, the Chinese ambassador, did mention this. Now, I don't have much respect for him. I think he's a typical arrogant communist official. A lot of his positions over the last year I've taken issue with. However, he mentioned this, and it is an issue. So we need to show that we're tackling that sort of racist abuse, not just condemning it. We need to be punishing the people responsible. So the people who attacked the Thai man in London and the people who attacked the Chinese woman in Cambridge. And sadly, they won't be the only such incidents, unfortunately. There's absolutely no excuse. Whatever you think of animal markets in Wuhan, but to be honest, I don't think the little shits that attacked this man have any moral issues about animal welfare or anything like that. I think they're just ignorant little shits. And I use that language. That's what I think of them. They need to be fined, they need to be punished. And I would definitely give them a custodial sentence for that, not a tap on the wrist, like is usually the case with young offenders. Um, I'm just disgusted at, you know, uh, I'll say this: I don't think this is a racist country. I don't think we are, but we cannot deny there are racist actions in our midst. And as a Briton, I stand 100% against those sort of mentalities. It embarrasses me and I'm disgusted by it. And if I saw that with anyone, I wouldn't intervene. But if I know one of my international friends, if they went through that sort of abuse, I wouldn't hold back. Maybe I'd be reckless, but I wouldn't hold back. I couldn't. And shame on those people who may have saw this incident and done absolutely nothing. Now I know that in London these days, young thugs carry knives, but to do absolutely nothing seems a bit well, sad. I just hope the people responsible are caught and they need to be made an example of. There's no excuse. The fact that they were laughing at the victim is all the worse because it indicates they're totally complacent.